The 2022 to 2023 National History Day theme is Frontiers in History. People, places, and ideas. A frontier is an area that is on the edge of a settled region and that is not yet fully explored or developed. The Franklin expedition was a frontier because it was motivated by the desire to find the Northwest Passage. Britain was a superpower during the 19th century. Britain helped defeat Napoleon in 1815 and win the Opium War against China in 1842. Its powerful navy allowed Britain to become a leader in global trade, importing and exporting many goods around the world. Britain's only way to reach Asia from Europe was to either sail around Africa or cross the Atlantic and sail beneath South America. In 1842, the country entered an era of exploration and discovery. After 300 years, the British Navy believed they were one voyage away from linking the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans. Like the moon landing of our time, finding the Northwest Passage became an international obsession. Sir John Baer was a true pioneer in the Franklin expedition as he was instrumental in organizing and funding its voyage to the Arctic. During the era of exploration and discovery, John Baer sought a captain for the uncharted voyage to the Arctic. Sir John Franklin was a pioneer, though not the first choice for the expedition. After much consideration, the Royal Society and Admiralty were confident that Sir John Franklin would return as an Arctic hero. Both the HMS Terror and the HMS Erebus were state-of-the-art ships with 4 years of Arctic experience under their belt. These ships were technological marvels of their age and frontiers in the art of shipbuilding, as you will see in the expedition's journey. The ships took an immense amount of provisions that would last a minimum of 3 years. One unique item in the Franklin expedition's food was a type of canned meat called portable soup. This was new and untested technology of its time, making the Franklin expedition one of the first to make extensive use of this innovation. The plans to keep these men occupied were extravagant. Supplies included scientific instruments, navigational tools, hand organ per ship, a pet monkey, a dog named Neptune, and a huge library that was stocked with thousands of books. The journey begins. May 19th, 1845. Sir John Franklin eagerly set sail on HMS Terror and HMS Erebus from England with 129 officers and men. July 12th, 1845. The ships made a quick stop for supplies. The last letters of the crew give us a glimpse of what life on the voyage was like when at Whale Island. Fitzjames stated, "I intended to write you a long letter but find I have really no time," Crozier said. "My time I find is fully occupied with observations of various kinds." These statements show just how busy the crew were. Not only was the Franklin expedition seeking uncharted territories, they were also scientists discovering new plants and animals. July 26th, 1845. British whalers are last to set sight on the expedition. Winter of 1845. The ships landed at Beechey Island. 3 crew members died. Summer of 1846. HMS Terror and HMS Erebus continued on their quest and headed south to King William Island. After traveling only 350 miles south, the ships froze again in ice. Arctic winters are long periods of complete darkness, and summers are constant daylight. The weather is unpredictable with sudden storms and blizzards. The terrain is one of Earth's most challenging places to live and work. Knowing this, the Franklin expedition would have sailed closer to the shoreline and would have expected to freeze during certain periods. Winter of 1846. HMS Terror and HMS Erebus remained frozen. The HMS Terror and HMS Erebus can be considered frontier vessels for several reasons. Technological advancements. The Terror and Erebus were 2 of the most advanced ships of their time, specifically designed for Arctic exploration. Exploration. The Terror and Erebus were the first to travel through the Northwest Passage, a feat that had eluded explorers for centuries. They also conducted numerous scientific studies of the region's geology and documented the customs and traditions of the indigenous people. Endurance. The Terran Erebus were subjected to some of the harshest and most extreme conditions unimaginable. The crew had to constantly adapt to their environment and innovate to survive, devising new methods of food preservation, water collection, and heating. May 28, 1847. Lieutenant Gore and 2 other officers left a note in a cairn. Sir John Franklin says all is well with the location of the ships. June 11, 1847. Sir John Franklin died. April 25th, 1848. Captain Crozier and Captain Fitzjames updated the cairn note. HMS Terror and HMS Erebus were deserted on the 22nd of April after having been beset since 12th December 1846. The remaining 105 men would head towards Blackfish River settlement. No one outside of King William Island had the faintest idea of what had happened to the Franklin expedition when it didn't show up in Bering Strait by 1846. Lady Jane Franklin launched a relentless campaign to force the Admiralty to act. Beginning in the spring of 1848, a massive search and mission began combing the Arctic for clues. In 1850, American and British searchers found 3 graves on Beechey Island, the first tangible clue of the Franklin's route. It was not for another 143 years that Beatty would perform autopsy. Trace elements analysis of bones and hair indicated that the crewmen would have suffered severe mental and physical problems caused by lead poisoning. In 1853 to 1854, John Ray was hired by Hudson Bay. Using the untraditional ways of seeking answers from Inuits, Ray obtained the relics belonging to the crew and testimonies. In 1854, John Ray sent a report to the British Admiralty. Published in the newspaper Times of London, Ray wrote, "From the mutilated state of many of the corpses and the contents of the kettles, it is evident that our wretched countrymen had been driven to the last resource, cannibalism." Rejecting any allegations of cannibalism amongst the crew, John Ray's report provoked outrage in Britain. Having a different perspective on the Franklin crew and their ability to resort to cannibalism, Jane Franklin started a smear campaign against John Ray, in which Charles Dickens would join. He writes on December 2, 1854, "And the moment the white man has appeared in the new aspect of being weaker than the savage has changed and sprung upon him." In 1854, Franklin's crew were pronounced dead. In this same year, Northumberland House was built and stocked with food in case of any of the lost men had found their way back. Researchers are still finding clues and new information to this day. In 1859, a search party led by Leopold McClintock discovered a sheet of paper in a tin container on King William Island. The original document is at the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, UK. Captain Leopold McClintock was lauded as a hero upon his return from his expedition on December 24, 1859. The newspaper Anthem declared the Franklin expedition, quote-unquote, one of the most important voyages ever made in the Arctic seas. Though the information on the cairn note was partially incorrect, irrelevant, and inconsistent, he was able to successfully change the narrative of the Franklin expedition's fate. It is now thought that all 129 men died from a combination of hypothermia, starvation, tuberculosis, exposure, and lead poisoning. The Franklin expedition, though failed, prompted new development in Arctic exploration, such as improvement in clothing, food preservation, and navigational tools. Today, the Franklin expedition is remembered as one of the greatest disasters in the history of polar exploration. During the space race, President Richard Nixon prepared a speech for if Apollo 11 sought the same demise. I see fit to quote a section in honor of the fallen Franklin expedition crew, who are true frontiers. Others will follow and surely find their way home. Man's search will not be denied, but these men were the first, and they will remain the foremost in our hearts. This year's History Day theme is Frontiers in History, People, Places, and Ideas. Sir John Franklin and his crew members explored and ventured into dangerous uncharted territory, facing the harsh, unknown Arctic. A true frontier.